Thank you for watching the Housing Oregon YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Slide decks from the presenters are going to be available below. Thanks for watching.
Hey y'all. That was so formal. So I just need to say, hey y'all, how are you? Everybody alive still? Been a long 2 days. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Urban League's Inside Looking Out, Outside Looking In. We're talking about the lived experience lens today. So, uh-oh. Sorry, y'all. Oh no. I need the clip. Oh, thank you. So, our discussion overview is we're talking about lived experience, how it plays a crucial role in the delivery of wraparound supportive services at the Urban League of Portland. By integrating personal insights and experiences of those who've navigated similar challenges, the Urban League ensures that its services are not only empathetic, but also highly effective. This approach allows for a deeper understanding of the unique needs of each individual, fostering trust and connection between service providers and recipients. The Urban League's commitment to leveraging lived experience helps tailor support to address specific barriers. Whether they relate to housing, employment, education, or health, this holistic method not only empowers individuals, but also strengthens the community as a whole, creating a more inclusive and supportive environment for all. My name is Leora Beverly. I'm the Senior Program Manager for Permanent Supportive Housing. And this is
Hello, I am Markeisha Allison, the Senior Housing Program Manager for Rapid Rehousing. And I'm going to go ahead and read the land and labor acknowledgement. So we thank you for being here. Today we celebrate the ongoing efforts to build justice across Oregon. We have decided to begin today's program with a labor acknowledgement. We find it vital to honor visionaries, builders, architects, artists, and countless others, past, present, and those to come along to do this work. With that being said, we will begin this morning or this afternoon with the labor acknowledgement written by Dr. Tara T.J. Stewart, an assistant professor of higher education and student affairs at Iowa State University. We must acknowledge that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, economic growth, and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horror of the transatlantic trafficking of their people, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We are indebted to their labor, their sacrifice. We must acknowledge the tremors of the violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can still be felt and witnessed today. Let's acknowledge the folks who cannot work for many reasons or who do not want to, and what that means for any exploitative labor obsessed society. Think about folks who work right up until the very end of their life with no rest. I think of folks whose labor is questioned, judged, criminalized, and unfairly legislated. Let's acknowledge unions who labored for better pay, better benefits, and safer working conditions for so many. I think of folks who are 1 to 3 paychecks away from being homeless and hungry, and yet they labor every day and have for a long time. If we cannot collectively begin to acknowledge the historical labor that has allowed our society to get and be where it is today, then we will continue to struggle to reconcile and redress those histories and legacies. As we conclude this labor acknowledgement, I would like to ask everyone here to acknowledge and also commit to building justice for all across Oregon and Southwest Washington.
so the big question is what is lived experience? So, by definition, lived experience with service providers and permanent supportive housing involves the day to day interactions and support that residents receive from various professionals dedicated to helping them maintain stable housing and improve their quality of life. Overall, the lived experience in permanent supportive housing is characterized by a holistic approach to care, where service providers work collaboratively to address the diverse needs of residents. This comprehensive support system helps individuals not only maintain stable housing, but also improve their overall well being.
So briefly, I'll go over the notes and bolts of support. So that would be case management. Um, Residents are often have a dedicated case manager who helps them navigate through various services and support. The managers play a crucial role in ensuring that the resident needs are met and that they are progressing towards greater independence. Then we have healthcare services. Many of the many PSH programs offer on-site healthcare services and facilitate access to medical care. This can include regular check-ins, medical health services, substance use treatment, and management of chronic conditions. The healthcare providers work closely with the residents to address their physical and mental health needs. The therapeutic support is basically just group and individual therapy sessions that are often available to help residents cope with past traumas, manage stress, and build healthy relationships. Therapists and counselors provide a safe space for residents to express their feelings and work through life challenges. Life skill training is just basically essentially helping them with life skills such as budgeting, cooking, cleaning, job readiness, as well as community building. Um, and this can include social events, workshops, peer support groups, advocacy, and legal support. Some services provides assistant assist residents with legal issues, such as resolving disputes with landlords, assessing benefits, or addressing past legal problems. Why is live experience such an important factor? Um, Basically, because it's a enhance empathy and understanding towards the participant, and being able to provide them uh, services that can offer a deeper level of empathy, um, basically where you can relate to the challenges and emotions that come with being homeless. And it also helps build trust and rapport with the participant. Credibility and trust. So basically, clients are more likely to trust and engage with a service provider who has lived experience because they kind of understand um, what they're going through and have similar experiences, um, as well as effective communication. Individuals live with lived experience often communicate more effectively with clients as they share common languages and understanding of issues they face. And then, as well as inform program design. Lived experience can inform the design and implementation of programs, ensuring that they are more relevant and responsive to actual needs of the homeless.
Thank you. So, I really want to have more of a discussion rather than just reading slides. One of the things about the harsh realities of, can you go to the next slide? Of the people that we reach, we that have been chronically homeless die faster. We know that their health is terrible. We know that they're rejected by society. They often have infectious diseases that are horrible, horrible. We see people on the side of the road rotting away, and we see people walk past every day to their beautiful cars, their fancy homes, and their nice life, and not much is done, and there's not much empathy. So I wanted to say it's kind of off of this page, but to me, the most important part about lived experience is working with people like my team. We've all been through something radical in our lives, and it was pivotal for us. And each one of us making the decision that we would commit to making our communities better based off the needs we had, applying that to the needs that we see among our community members. And I think that's part of, to counteract the harsh realities of you know, the things that happen to our homeless community. We do our best because we know how bad and how deeply it hurts to be rejected, not just by your family and your friends, but by all of society. So, anyway, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is more of an interactive because I didn't want to just be talking, talking, talking. I want to hear from y'all. If anybody cares to share, we would love to hear How do you think acknowledging your own vulnerabilities and struggles has helped create a more authentic connection with your clients? Does anybody want to share? Okay, now not everybody at one time. Don't be shy. Kelly, yes? You? Oh, there's a.
Hi. Um, I'm a person with lived experience and am now have a job where that's useful. I connect with the people because I've been there and done that. So it really does make a difference. Really does.
I think as a person with lived experience, I've been homeless, I've lived in a shelter. And so really having that empathy, no matter how, whatever situation got you there, it doesn't matter how you got there, but how do you get yourself out? It helps you to understand where someone's coming from and to walk on that journey and that path with them without being judgmental. And I feel like it enhances the work that we can do when you can really understand. And you don't have to understanding of everything anybody went through, because of course I may not have the same understanding of different things, but knowing, hey, I've been homeless, I've lived in a shelter, and those different things that it just helps you to have a different light to how you look at things and how you approach working with someone instead of judging them, because we don't know what people's stories are, and when they share them, that's a intimate moment where you really get a lens into what people are going through, and also how to help them on that journey. And it's also not just about helping, but it's also a healing process for somebody. So when you can reach out that hand, you're also offering that place where they can begin that healing they need.
Thank you. With that being said, has anybody ever had a time where your live experience caused you to change your approach to a particular case, and what led to that shift?
This is an amazing question as a service provider. I think we should all be able to answer, but definitely I would say before I had a lived experience, I had what you would call a second or a third hand lived experience, meaning relatives or close loved ones. However, everything changed for me when I walked in it. So before the lived experience as a service provider, I could say I had sympathy. I didn't quite know what even empathy meant in this situation. People would talk about their different experiences in the shelters, and I'd be like, girl, bye. You tried it, you making it up. It's another excuse, right? But then when labels and stigmas started to be placed and diagnosed on me and having to live experience of domestic violence, homelessness, addiction, and then when I went into the shelter, I was like, oh, I guess they wasn't lying. People really do treat you like this. They say that, they want to help you, and then, whoa. So now being on the other end of the fence again, now I actually take the time to listen. So then there's my approach. It's just letting them have that moment, listening to what they're truly saying that they're needing, and then tackling it.
Anyone else?
Got me thinking. Hi, I also have lived experience, and uh, prior to my lived experience, I would have said, and I was raised like, you just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's a choice you're making. You're not trying hard enough. Um, and there was a portion of my life when I was in that downward spiral. Maybe I wasn't, but I will say, and I would say I'd come from a place of privilege. I had a college degree and whatnot. But when I was on the streets, not couch surfing, when I was like sleeping in the alleyways, there was a time when I was doing I like everything I absolutely could to get out of that situation. Um, at least in my mind, like it wasn't like I was not choosing to be on the street. Um, And that really made me think, like, oftentimes it's just this very choice closed decision, like, and it definitely has helped. It doing what I do now. I'm a program coordinator for supported housing, and yeah, that inherent empathy that comes with lived experience, that authenticity that builds that trust and rapport with the people that you're working with. I would have never had that. So it's also given me a ton more patience because a lot of it takes time.
One thing I wanted to say was I think for me as a provider, one of the things that I learned along the way was to check people's hiding spaces because I was a person that hid a lot of the storm that I was going through. And so it wasn't always easy to see that I was, struggling and going through all types of crises. And so for me, uh, especially, I think I specialize, well, in humans, but women, I could relate to a domestic violence survivor and kind of knew the signs and symptoms of somebody that was hiding and coping, somebody that was bandaging, and somebody that was in a deep, deep addiction and, kind of keeping it under wraps. And so I think, for me, after walking through the storm and not really having a sense of, like real navigation, just kind of just going through, um, I check people's hiding spaces and learn all the things that they don't say. And I don't know if I would have ever did that before, but I do it now and I make it a point to be very intentional about the type of relationship and the type of communication because I think that it's so important to communicate both verbal and nonverbal. So that was my piece on that. We have this, but it's kind of silly, but not. But these are some of the challenges and considerations because it is very hard. With lived experience, the one thing that I found is that there are hot spots. We all know like certain subjects can actually trigger a lot of memory and not necessarily take you all the way back, but take you to a place where now you can't understand why you feeling some type of way. Mary's over here feeling some type of way. Now I do too. And it's hard sometimes. So, also, yes, avoiding tokenism and ensuring genuine inclusion. It's interesting. We all work in different types of organizations. Some of us work for culturally specific organizations, or some of us work for culturally responsive. And there's a huge difference. And so, just trying to make sure that we make everyone feel loved and seen and heard is super important. And it's sometimes not always easy. So obviously, creating a supportive environment for lived experts. Um, I think with our team, one of the things I love my team, this is some of the folks, it's about 30 of us right now. And what I love about these people is that um, I could come to work with one shirt piece tucked in. I might just be in some Crocs. You never know. But they care about my well being and I care about theirs. And that has made a tremendous difference. It's made an impact in my life. I think it's made an impact on theirs as well and how we care about the people that we serve. So I think it's a safe space. And then also the trainings and all the support. We want to make sure that we do those things as well. This next part of our presentation is small groups. So some of y'all are very small groups, and that's okay. I left some paper and a pen on your table. Thank you, Latricia, for the pens. If you could circle up with your group and find a designated person to share out, we're going to ask these questions and then share out some of our responses because I'm sure all of us have something good to say and we want to hear from all of you. So, in your table, if you could. The first question is, and you'll have about 5 to 7 minutes for each to talk about it and then write down whatever. What are some of the misconceptions people might have about working in the community with having lived experience that you can identify? And we will start a timer in my mind. Okay, we've got about 30 seconds. Oh, so
All right, if you all want to start wrapping up your conversations, and then we'll go around from around the room so everyone can share. Hello. I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like everybody is having some really good conversations. We're going to go ahead and just take a few people from some of the tables. So if anybody just wants to start out at their table, reporting out regarding the question. Okay.
Okay, so I we talked about, when you have lived experience and you've been there, you've been homeless, you've been to prison, all that. Being around the people that you might know from your past or that are just in the same place where you came from, is that gonna, you know, trigger you to maybe relapse, maybe fall backwards? I personally say no, that it just gives you more incentive to move forward, right? And another misconception is that, you know, your past, it's always been a negative thing for me. Like, wow, you've been to prison not once, but twice, and all this stuff, and, in the end, that is what got me the job. So it can turn positive, you know? So, yeah. Yeah.
Hi there. So we came up with a few along the lines of yours. The job description to include people with lived experience is not often seen as a strength. It's seen as a disadvantage. People coming from homelessness, the misconception is that they can't be reintegrated into mainstream society. We also have the defining misconception of homeless people uh, are there because they decided to be there, that there's no other way for them to be. That's just their world. And that they've lost the ability to choose, so that they shouldn't get to choose. They get what we will allow them to have. Did that cover it?
So we came up with a few. One was you're not an addict. So how can you tell me exactly, what I'm going through, or how can you show me? Another one was that they made poor decisions in their life, and so they're obviously there for a reason. And then obviously getting to know someone's story. I think sometimes we assume that people are where they're at or where they're not at and don't know the story. Oh, wow.
Good afternoon, everyone. So some of the can you guys hear me? Oh, okay. I thought y'all laughing back there, laughing at me. Hi, my name is Carlos. So what myself and our group talked about, one of the things was relapse and not being ready for the environment that you're placed in. Um, but I kind of want to go on the other end of the spectrum. One of the things that we talked about is being too far. So I don't think anybody touched on it yet. It's being too far removed from the lived experience. A lot of times we want the people with the lived experience, but we say, will they be able to make it in this, right? But what about the people that have had the lived experience and now they're so far removed from it that they can exactly, and then there's the possibility of them being triggered somewhere down the way by something else. Then we also talked about once an addict, always an addict. You know, that whole questioning thing as far as how we look at people, how we discern them, and we never give them the chance. You know, even before they had a chance to prove themselves, not to us, but even just to themselves, we're still saying, hey, well, maybe, nah, I don't think so. You're so far in your experience that even though we want you for that, right? But we're not giving you that second thought, that second chance that you can make it. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, yeah. Thank you. You want some hair speak? My love
You got
color
it,
of the hair.
G.I. Joe.
We're gonna talk about transition.
You got
We
it.
gonna share.
You got it.
About making the transition.
Okay, no, it was so much touched on about the transition if they're ready. Our dear sir brought up a great point about when you have a lived experience. Oh, I'm sorry. When you have those lived experience, like, okay, sometimes, the brain doesn't work and function. Okay, are they going to be on time? Are they going to be ready to transition properly into the role? Yes, we want them for the lived experience, but we need them to be a professional as well. We need them to be on the other end of the spectrum. So that's what we mean by transitioning in and out of the room.
One of the misconceptions a lot of people have is that everybody who's homeless is not an addict. So that's one of the misconceptions. We look at them like you have lived experience, assuming that they're an addict or they have an addiction. Might be lived experience just because you're homeless and you lost your job. Okay?
That's a good point. I'll be touching on that a little bit later. Anyone else want to share? Okay.
Thank you. Hey. Um, we had a really valuable discussion, and a couple of points that came out were we work in development and on the development side of things, and so just kind of seeing people with lived experience as experts, kind of equally as expert as the other consultants and other experts at the table, and not having like a difference between weights in the things that they say and at the table. And then another an interesting point was about people from um, Asian descent and different, and that kind of category that can be so extremely broad in the United States that it makes invisible some of the differences in those different communities and different backgrounds. And so kind of understanding those different lived experiences within groups. So looking at that as well.
Okay, so we have another question, and we'll give you another 5 to 7 minutes. So, do you feel that your needs were met while you were going through your personal journey? And what are some of the things you have implemented in your programming because of your lived experience? 5 to 7 minutes to get back into your groups.
Test, test, test. Can y'all hear me okay?
We have about 50 seconds left, so if you want to start wrapping up your conversations.
All right. Oh, we got a minute left? Oh. 1 minute left. Okay, we're ready. This time, we're going to start with tables that have been shared. And hope to hear from table in the back, table in the front, and then we'll the twins over here, the twins that have been hiding. Because we want to hear from everybody because you all are a part of this work. So your voice matters. So we'll start with the table in the back, and you can stand up and
All right, I'll share about yours. Okay. Well, we heard a really great uh, thing that was implemented in programming. Um, just not naming names, but by the experience of someone that was a participant, and he came in for coffee one morning and was just talking about how he missed his mom's fresh cooked breakfast, and also paired with that the recognition that when you have like lived experience, your autonomy is so often taken away, and especially around food. And food is something that nourishes us in so many ways. And so the idea of creating the cafe, Hattie Cafe, where people can come and be served and have that restaurant experience. And yeah, that I just thought that was a really awesome idea.
thank you.
So our table, we talked about, so there was a situation where, so a client or a participant comes to talk to a caseworker, and before they could share the whole story, caseworker
jump to conclusion and just make a lot of assumptions and, oh, this is gonna how you feel, right? This is what you need, right? So to revert that, what started to be implemented is um, when this person becomes a caseworker, they let the person just talk, just tell us about you, what you need, and what is your situation, without interrupting, without making that assumption, and then just to actively listen, figure out solutions later, right? Or solution or not, but you just be there for the person. And I didn't get a chance to share, but for me, it's like a cultural difference in perception to certain things. Like therapy can look different to one person from one culture to the other. A lot of time, like I grew up not talking about emotions. Therapy is not a thing. So when a lot of people were like, "Oh, therapy works for me, should try that," went to one, was not culturally specific, was not care, like they don't understand where each of us coming from. So that for me was like, that was an approach but didn't work. So when I say I talk to other people and like we see what each other going through, we not necessarily understand that, but at the same time, what is the other alternative way? Like, do you have a support system? Can I be your support system? If I know where you go through and I know your journey, for example. So that just one of the few things.
Hello. So, to the first part of the question, do you feel that your needs were met while you're going through your personal journey? So in my own personal journey, I've had a lot of different parts with addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, living in my car with my kids at times in shelters. I do feel that my domestic violence was met great. It helped me get Section 8 housing. I did stay in the homeless shelter in that meantime, waiting for my Section 8. On the addiction side of it, though, I do feel that there is struggles, though, still in communities as if you're not that high risk addict, they won't help you. So as if you don't have a needle in your arm or you're not pregnant, we're not going to assist you. We're not going to give you funds. Therefore, you're just taking that person that's already spiraling, asking for help, and just shooting them a no and no offering no other resources. So that was a hard one in my personal journey with that part. And then some of the things we've implemented in our program, this is my boss, Christy. She's hired a great staff that we all are one small family, but we do care about the needs of our clients. Excuse me, sorry about that. Right? Hopefully. But yeah, so we do make sure that we are on their level. We don't, try to act above them. I'm the front desk lady, so I get to work with all the people that come in every day, and I love it. I love my job. I love working for the Housing Authority. I also manage Project Turnkey. So we have all walks of life there, women and children, men and children that are homeless on the streets. We're trying to do our best to come down and, ask them what they need and help them and not judge them, not give them any idea that we're, better than them. So I want to help them and we're here to help them.
I'll start with a common quote, closed mouths don't get fed. We talked about in the experience, dealing with humility, like surrendering to the needs of and the help, like a lot of men versus women, like the cultural difference, women being more nurturing, men sometimes dealing with a little pride or, let me figure it out ourselves. But nevertheless, we also shared stories that okay, when we surrendered to the help and when we opened up our mouths and said the things that we need, we still didn't get fed. And nevertheless, going to like the different experiences, us being discriminated and judged upon the stigma of homelessness or addiction, or like, hey, you don't look homeless, you're clean, or just the different discriminations that come up. And so I would say the solution, what we all agreed upon, is providing a compassionate level of care services, whatever it is that we find ourselves doing, whether it's running a food pantry, one-on-one services, client engagement. Number one, we're building a rapport. We're going to listen. We're going to listen to the heart so that we don't make those same mistakes, and just even judge them with our body language, because that's the strongest and the loudest form is body language and fight nonverbal communication. So we felt like that's the most important thing that you can implement in whatever services that you're providing, is definitely taking the opportunity to relate to them, to understand their experiences. You might not have to give in to it, but at least make sure they're being heard, and watch even your response to what they're giving you, because we don't want to hurt them. We want to love them back.
Before we move to the next question, I would say one of the things that we noticed in permanent supportive housing with the Urban League was that a lot of people were coming to us and they were active in their addiction, which we knew, we expected. But one thing that was a simple thing, just a simple thing, but a lot of our people had, they needed foot care. Their legs, their feet were beat up. And so we decided, let's just get people foot baths. Let's get them all the little stuff. Let's get them socks. Let's make the socks available to them, every whenever. How often would you say? Monthly? The monthly store? Yeah. But making sure that those things are there, because if you can imagine what it would feel like to walk around in the same pair of socks, like let alone 2 days, imagine a year or 2 years or 3 years. And one of our people, he is one of my favorites, and his name is Mr. S, and he is as cute as a button, y'all. And he was living in an abandoned building, but he had family all in the community, but and people that work in this work, so it was strange. But Mr. S, his socks were only just like ankle bands. They weren't even, there was like nothing on the bottom. And I was like, that's horrible. And he loved them. Honey, he was wearing them things, those little ankle bands. And so we made sure like Mr. S gonna have some socks. You need them. And those are just small implementations, but we make sure that we are consistent with that type of stuff, because you have to be able to recognize the details of someone's life, things that they don't say that they need, that they absolutely need, and add that to your care. So anyway, we'll move to the next question. It's the last one. And it's, how was your experience with serving in the community that you may or may not closely identify with changed your outlook on your self-care and how self-care applies to you? And then part of that is, how do you decompress after a rough few days? So you got about 5 to 7 minutes.
All right, about 30 more seconds and then we'll wrap up this conversation. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap on up. Is there anybody who would like to share? I used to be a preschool teacher, so if you hear me, clap once. Is there anybody that would like to share out regarding this question?
Well, so for me, self-care, I was telling the table, like I could talk forever about self-care. So, and I probably have a different take on it. Like it is like bubble baths and cheesecake. But, I'm a big proponent that it actually, it starts, it's like the hierarchy of needs. Like it starts off like, do you have a consistent sleep schedule? Are you staying active? Are you eating well? Are you taking care of your most basic needs first? And I preach this with our case managers to our participants as well. Because if it's, and also is that is living underneath your means financially, like the huge stress and anxiety. Because if you got a stack of mail that you haven't looked at, or if you're not sleeping well, if your sleep schedule, or if you're not eating well, like the bubble bath does, it's nice, and you know, light some candles. But all that stuff's still there when you're done. So I'm huge on self-care, starting with your basics first. Taking care of yourself. Then the other part of it that's huge. So, and it wasn't, this wasn't as on my mind when I had a job that wasn't like serving this community. So I never really had to pay attention to self-care in this aspect. I'm also huge on healthy boundaries. I'm huge. That's partner, coworkers, participants, whatnot. If you're I'm big on like creating a life you don't have to escape from. Like if you take a vacation or if you take days off, but you're coming back to it, just a horrible day, like that's not going to work out for you long term. So like I'm really big on healthy boundaries with everyone in my life, including my boss and my, you know, my where it starts at work. Because if I was working at cars and I was a mechanic, it would be 10 o'clock at night and I'd think about that transmission. That's going to happen naturally. But if you're at home stressed out nonstop about your job, to me, you should really look at having some healthy boundaries, so you can continue. I'm huge. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Like if you really want to show up every day, like full of care and patience and like, you know, and everything that we need to do to do this work, yeah, you can't be drained yourself. So.
That's good. Yes, definitely having healthy boundaries. And you reminded me I need to look at a piece of mail when I get home. Anybody else?
Oh, okay. So, you know, I have learned over working in this and working with individuals in the public, or not so much the public, but with clients, is, you know, I don't let their emergencies become mine. I say, I got to see, are you on fire? And no, I said, okay, it can wait. You know, so it's just like the healthy boundaries that this gentleman was talking about, setting healthy boundaries, and then just taking care of yourself. I do the nails and the feet, but I don't really need that because I try and not let myself get stressed out. I know what I can do and I know what I can't do. And as long as I'm clear on that, then, you know, it saves me from a lot of stress. And so, and how do I can decompress after a rough few days? Well, I don't get those anymore. So I can sit down and watch a nice movie or and just take care of my, and I don't mean to sound like I'm flippant or something, but I've been doing it for a long time and I've run into everything, you know. I don't, just like you all do and doing the work. So yeah. That's it. Thank you.
I aspire to get there one day. That was really good though. You said that you help your people also set healthy boundaries so then they know that everything is not as urgent as it is.
Hello. So the feedback that we got from our group, um, the self-care, we have some that said it's okay to cry, listening to music, a spa day with the massaging and the pedicures and manicures, which feels good. Um, connecting with people when you connecting with people who lift you up, encouraging someone or encouraging people to, what is that? Encouraging people, realizing that we all have a voice, joining a committee. Some of us enjoy cooking, it's an outlet. Some of us enjoy dancing, being able to follow the steps. Uh, watching true crime movies. There's a few of us in our office. We have plants, and so we'll watch the plant grow. And some of them are growing, some of them are dying. We're trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we getting them to grow? Okay, I said exercising. One personal for me is, well, many of that had already been said, but I find I have a couple of, well, got plenty of nieces and nephews, but there is a couple. Aunt Rashawn, we like when you make the pancakes. So for me, it's showing the young ones how to cook, and they're asking, we want you to show us that. So that's kind of a way of decompressing too, to be able to give. So.
So mine is basically right along the lines with the whole, healthy boundaries and everything, but it's kind of a specific example that I've seen a lot of people do over the years. And it's, at the end of the day, I turn my work phone off and I leave it on my desk and I go home without it. And I just leave my work day behind me when I go home. I don't take my clients' problems home with me.
Anyone else? I was going to say that too. I have a confession. Are you about to say something about this lovely lady? Oh.
Yeah. No, seriously. What do you do for self-care, Leora? Fixing.
starting to get better at self-care, so I don't turn my phone off at 5. But what I do, the ones that die, I leave it out and I put it on the charger and I don't worry about it. So for me, that's a step towards doing self-care, but
2 a.m.
and, I do have things on my personal phone, so sometimes I cannot answer. But self-care for me is when I pull up to my house, I sit in the car for about 10 minutes with no music, nothing, and I just decompress for the day and just sit in silence. Then I say a prayer before I go into my house, because then I have to deal with my family now. So and that's not why I'm saying a prayer, but just saying a prayer. So, I ask God to give me strength to be able to keep going. So the next slide is talking about how can we improve access to permanent supportive housing based on our lived experiences. So this is some of the things that we put, but is there anybody else who wants to add to this list, or maybe want more detail about some of the things on this list?
Now, so in most of our permanent supportive housing programs, we don't offer, we target single people households. So, but I will say, I do have an ideas all the time. And one of the things that I was thinking of a long time ago, once upon a time, I lived in affordable housing, and there was an on-site YWCA. There was a childcare, there was a computer room, a basketball court, and after-school activities that helped me with my kids that it was me and 5 kids at that time. And so we had to use that. And it was pretty much free. I think it was like super affordable. But in my opinion, it would be wise to implement on-site daycare services for affordable housing and permanent supportive housing all across Multnomah County and other counties as well, just to be able to know that you can take your children right to childcare and they'll be okay. And maybe it stay open until 7 instead of 5 or 6, so that we can get there to get them on time and then just go home and transportation not be one of the barriers, because some parents don't even have cars. I remember I had a Ford Tempo, and that thing, and one day it said pow, it was the pow, but it was like, it wasn't, that was it. It did not turn back on, and it was me and some kids like jogging down the street, trying to get where we were going, and those are things that we don't really think about, how hard it is to like try to navigate all that stuff and get your car fixed or not get it fixed. It really was like a car before Christ. So I just had to junk it, but everybody doesn't always have that option.
I'll break your kids here if you can watch my kids, you know, on these days. And so it kind of worked for them. And so she would break them here whenever she separated, and she had somebody to watch her kids after school until she got home. And so sometimes just helping them to come up with creative resources, and then also just providing them with some of the childcare resources that are out there. There's after school programs. There's programs for parents who are over the income threshold for like ERDC, where they can still get child care assistance. But now we're coming into a new era where with the cost of living increasing, and then everybody making more wages that a lot of people are suddenly not qualified for. Some of the other resources, that just providing other resources that they can tap into. Get them out child care so they can work.
You know that? Come with us before we're going to storm the Capitol. Oh. So we're getting to the best part of our presentation, and we do have to cut it a little bit shorter because we're running out of time, but we'll both take about 5 to 7 minutes to share testimony about our why and what we've implemented. So she will share first. Oh, oops, sorry. Don't mind all that. Or that.
To pretty much tell my story, I'm going to start off kind of where it started from. So here's me as a little kid. That's my mom. And so I was born in New Orleans, and I moved to Portland as a child. I was raised by a single mother. My father wasn't in the picture. When I was growing up, he is now. My parents got back together after so many years, and now they're married. But at this point, he was not there. And so my mother was very resilient, a strong woman, very supportive and loving. She always had a job, and does not work as heavy. And that's what that's the environment I come from. The other thing is that she had salad bar that she knew we couldn't afford. And then or we would go to Skipper's. And then after that, we would go to TJ Maxx, and she would let us get 2 outfits each. So when I talk about poor money management, those are things that she could have cut off in order to make it to where we didn't move a lot. Now, don't ask me if I do these same things with my kids. I'm working on it. So as a child, I experienced homelessness twice. Once we stayed with my aunt, and the other time with a close family friend. And so that's pretty much just giving you an idea of my childhood. And so my childhood pretty much led to me experiencing homelessness 4 times as an adult within 10 years. Um, the first time was I moved back to New Orleans, was going to college, and I got displaced by Hurricane Katrina. I kind of put a picture of the Superdome back there. Me, my mom, dad, and my sister, 3 kids, were all at the Superdome. My sister was getting ready to move back there, so her kids, she sent them along so they could start school on time. So after that happened, I brought her kids back. I decided to stay in Portland. 3 years later, I became a mom. Before I became a mom, me and my sister got a 4-bedroom house out in Vancouver. We stayed together. We were able to stack our money and do all the things we need to do. So then once I had my own child, I decided to move out, get my own place with my partner. And during the first year and a half of her life, I didn't work. Her dad took care of everything. He worked. He hustled. He could sell everything from a Lucy tires all the way up to drugs. And I didn't have to worry about anything. Once my daughter was almost 2, I started working. I got laid off from my job, and me and her dad had separated at the time. I lost my place because I couldn't pay my rent. So I moved back home to Louisiana with my parents, and I stayed there for about a year and a half. I moved back, got a place, and then 2013, I got pregnant with my second child. Me and her dad had rekindled our love, I guess you could say. And then with my second child, I was high risk pregnancy, but I still work because, like I said, my mom said a man who does not work does not eat. So I went to work one day. They were cutting the grass, and I'm a chronic asthmatic. And so I stayed there. I was suffering, puffing my inhaler 50 times an hour until I passed out and woke up a week later in the hospital. And so during this time, the kid's dad had got arrested while I was in the hospital. And when I came home from the hospital, I had a notice on my door for a no-cause eviction. And so I went to the landlord and I'm like, why? She was like, it's a no cause. I don't have to tell you. Just get your stuff and be out in 2 days. So I moved out. I couch surfed for about a few months with his family. Then I just said, I'm tired of this because I kept paying everybody all this money. And I was just like, I'm not going to get anywhere doing this. So I went into a shelter. And then 4 days before my youngest was born, I moved into a place, transitional housing for women with kids. And so she was born. We stayed there for a while. My older sister, she became homeless, her and my niece. My oldest niece is disabled. And so going back, anytime I've ever been homeless, my sister always opened her doors to me. And so I couldn't have her and my niece out there. I said, come just stay with me, even though I couldn't have nobody staying with me. And so that caused me to get evicted once my case manager found out. And so here it is, me, my sister, my niece, and my 2 kids were all homeless. At that time, their dad started coming back around. So now we're all homeless together, paying $3,000 plus a month for motel rooms, until one day I said, I'm tired of doing this. So me and my 2 kids and their dad, we not moved, but started just sleeping in the car. We would park on the side of his grandma's house, and we had it all set up to where at night we gonna fold down. I had a Chrysler Pacifica. I would put them seats down, put the blankets down, get the kids settled. And at this time, he was starting to have health issues, and he felt like he had congestive heart failure. So as I would get my 1-year-old to sleep, I would then switch spots with him and sit up and sleep and let him lay down in the back with him. And so I did this for a while. And during this time, we had places where we could go take showers. We would go in his grandma's house. At my job at the time, they had a shower in there. I don't know why. It was like a medical health equipment place, but they had a shower in there. Sometimes I would go in there. Um, and so we found ways to just get by. And so when people found out that I was homeless and living in a car, they didn't believe it because how well kept I kept myself and my kids. And my oldest was still going to school every day, didn't miss a beat. And then the one thing that happened, that what Oprah said, that aha moment, is one day we were getting ready for bed and I was putting the blankets down, and me and my daughter was watching a movie in the front seat, and I was like, "Come on, get in the back so you can lay down." And she said, "Man, I can't wait till we get a house so I could just lay down in a comfy bed." And it broke me down. So I was like, "Okay, I can't do this anymore." So by this time, their dad was so sick that he was in and out the hospital at the time. And I don't want to say we separated, but it just kind of happened naturally. And so from there, um, this is how I changed my mindset. I basically started focusing on what can I solve myself. I started reaching out to different community organizations. And so I continued working, doing overtime, looking for places, even though I really didn't have the money for a deposit. And then one day, SCI, Self Enhancement, they had called me and said, "You've been chosen for a program. We want to help you get in a place." And so my caseworker, she had lived experience, and she made everything feel so comfortable for me. Like it was like I was talking to a friend, so I could really tell her everything that I was going through and what I had been through. And from there, they helped me get into a place by paying a deposit, helped me pay my rent for some months. They got me furniture. Like when I say furniture, like we was in the store shopping for it. And I was like thinking we were gonna go to like Salvation Army or, somewhere. But they really took care of me. And from that day on, I was like, I'm never going to be homeless again. And so that's pretty much where me being homeless stopped. And I haven't been homeless for the past 10 years. So I I still have some struggles and some things that I'm working through, but because of the experience I've been through, I know that it's nothing that I'm gonna get through this next storm and be able to, shake it off and be good. And these are my kids. And then the picture in the middle is going to be important in just a second. That is not their dad. That is my husband. And so basically why I'm dedicated to this work, basically I continued to gain self-sufficiency, became stable. Their father remained homeless and couch surfed and stayed in his car. Eventually he got enrolled into a PSH program, got a place, but he had endured so much loss during that time. His aunt, his cousin, and then his mother. And so he continued to sleep in his car. The only time that he went home is that when he had his kids, and he was afraid to be alone. And so he knew he could pull up to his grandmother's house to the side of there, and there's going to be all type of people, sent to the side, and, he didn't have to be alone. Last year in October, he passed away in his car. And so when Lior talks about getting into their business and finding their hiding spot, it's very important to do that because we often forget that the house is just a start. The real work starts when we do all the wraparound services and really get to know the person and see how we can continue to help them to rise above whatever obstacles that they're having. And so I now just dedicate my life to doing this work because I myself been through it, but because in honor of their father, because he didn't have to pass away in his car. He could have been home, but because of his mindset wasn't changed, that's where he, continued to stay. And then that's their father with the kids. And Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we're getting close to the time, so I'll cut mine as short as possible. It's probably like the longest slide ever, but I probably won't even talk about this. I mean, I guess I could. So probably 10 years ago, I too went through one of the worst periods of my life. Um, it was rough and raggedy. I'm trying to give you the abbreviated version. There was a food bank down at the end of our street. It was a church, and people would line up. Where I lived at was like a neighborhood of duplexes, and they were all like really run down. It was an old military base, and so the church would hand out food, but it would be like spinach leaves and tangerines and rotten bread. Nothing really, freezer burnt meat maybe. And you would wait probably 2 hours or more, hoping that you get something, but oftentimes not. I had already sent my kids away. I wasn't trying to drag them through what I was going through because it was very personal. Um, so I remember being there at that food pantry, wishing that I could change my life and hoping that things would get better, but also envisioning if I ever had the opportunity to change my life around enough to where I could help other people change their life around, the first thing would be we're gonna have a food pantry to die for. There's gonna be pork chops, ribs. Just kidding. But I'm saying, well, I probably am not kidding because I think there is. So it took some doing and it took some pushing, and I didn't really have a lot of assistance. I didn't have case managers or anything, but it was a lot of willpower and just me being crazy enough to try to step out on faith to go from homelessness to being we're both went from homelessness to being senior housing program managers, and reaching other people was a long road, and it's amazing. It feels good to share that. Some people find shame in their story, but the thing about it is that we got to a place where we could see a clear path. We took it, and then we executed all the things that we dreamt about while we were sleeping in our cars or in an abandoned house or waiting in line for hours for no food. And so, one of the things that we implemented in one of the buildings that we have is the food pantry, along with the cafe. There's also a food pantry, and every week, twice a week, we hand out good things, things that people want to eat, and never old lettuce, and definitely not rotten bread. People have their opportunity to come get what they need, and our food pantries actually serve all of our organization, not just the people that live in our buildings. And it's a tremendous blessing to be able to know that even if somebody's in their active addiction, they still have access. So they sold their food stamps, but you still have access. We're never going to shame you nor judge. We're just going to make sure that you eat good. So that's one thing. Oops, sorry, y'all. And then the last thing I really, really wanted to share, the most important thing, very precious to my heart, and to I think all of our heart, because is Miss Lisa. So Miss Lisa was a participant that we had. We found her on the side of the road. And we all know here as service providers, we're able to do Vispidats and get people, what they need and then refer them to services. Miss Lisa was on the side of the road, and it was a very hot day. And she was like, please, I just need some help. And we brought her in, we fed her, we did a Vispidat. We were able to refer her to get services, and because of those services, she was able to get housed pretty quickly. One of the most wonderful things about Miss Lisa was that she was very, very loud. She was very loud. She was 40 years, I think. Did you say 40 years in her addiction, and hadn't been housed in so long, but she was so loud, but she was grateful for every little thing. I mean, if we gave her socks, she loved them. We passed out undies, she was wearing them. Sometimes just the undies, but that's what, like, okay, that's all right. We love her. We love her undies. So she she was very precious. We started gathering clothes because I felt like it was necessary for our participants to have access to clean clothes. So they have their laundry, but also maybe they can't afford to go buy clothes, but we can donate ours and give them to them, and they can feel great. Some of those people were ballers back in the day. Some of those people had good jobs and had beautiful families, and then things fell apart. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to bless people with gently worn clothes that were, kind of fancy. Some of them were very nice. Miss Lisa utilized our clothing closet more than anybody. And she would grab her bundles of clothes and, I got all these clothes, girl. This is so cute. If you knew her voice, you loved her voice. She would also, we always put fresh coffee out every morning. Miss Renetta does that. So, and Latricia, but mostly Renetta. The Anyway, Miss Lisa would come every morning, grab the coffee, dump all of the cream, all of it, and then spin around with the cup, coffee splashed everywhere, all down the hallways. And that's her morning. That was every day. But we knew that Miss Lisa was alive and thriving because she was splashing coffee down the hallways. And then one day there was no coffee splashed, and we had heard through the grapevine to go check on her. We did, and we found Miss Lisa, sleeping for forever. She was resting in her home and she died peacefully. But there were several things about that were beautiful because one of the things was she was sober. She hadn't been sober in 40 years and she had about 60 days clean. She had a whole bunch of new clean clothes. She had also been petitioning the courts for some money that was owed her. But because she was dressed up in her fancy clothes to go to court, she felt empowered and she won her court hearings and got that money back. She was starting to reestablish a relationship with a lot of people that she had broken relationships with because she was getting her dignity back. And so at first I was heartbroken and distraught. We all were when she passed, but recognizing that she used every service that we had, and these were things that we were just creating as we went. It was a wonderful feeling and a huge, tremendous breakthrough to realize that that's exactly why we do the things that we do. She got her life back. Even if it was just the very end of her life, she didn't die in any type of shame. She didn't die like that. She died with dignity. And I was just very relieved. And so this is a painting that somebody gave to us. We do paint therapy. So Our Lady comes like once a month, is it? And so she sits with the participants and we paint stuff. I'm not a good painter. I tried. I painted some zebras one time. They didn't, I don't know what those look like. But anyway, she decided to bless us because she loved Miss Lisa as well. I don't think Miss Lisa ever took a painting class, but I think she came and spilled the coffee. So this is a quote that Miss Lisa always said. And it reads, all lives will matter when Black Lives Matter first. And so we wanted to share this painting with y'all so you could see it and just recognize this is just one small piece of the puzzle, but we're all actively doing the work. And if we can make an impact on just this one life, if all of us agree as a whole to come together and really put our hearts and soul into this and go a little bit beyond what's being done already, we have the power to change a lot of things for a lot of people. So I just want to say thank you so much for listening today. Thank you for engaging. I appreciate each of you that are in this room because I'm sure we're all connected to the work in some way, shape, or form. So I hope you have a great day.